Hi, this is Phil Parrish from the Caves and Lunatics podcast, a proud member of the collective, and you're listening to Into the Night, a Moon Knight podcast.
Hello, welcome back, Looney listeners. This is episode 55 of Into the Night, a Moon Knight podcast. I am your host, High Priest of Priest Rey, and I've returned to review our LUNAR-PICK issue of this for this week. It is Hulk magazine number 18, and it is the backup story, Shadows in the Heart of the City. So, grab your issues out, sit back, relax, and get your Khonshu on. Yes, welcome, Loonies. Thanks for joining us on Into the Night. I am your host, Ray. I am flying solo this episode due to some technical difficulties, and basically just trying to work through a schedule. Has been quite difficult with little Finn on board now. So just for this episode, I thought it would be good to just keep it going, and look, I'll review Hulk number 18. So apologies to for Rebecca and Connor not being on this episode, but actually before any of that, I would like to absolutely thank first of all Tommy and his good mate Matthew, who I have a sneaking suspicion might be Daredevil. He's a lawyer, he did mention, and his first name's Matthew. But anyway, those two guys did a great job with one of the earlier episodes where they reviewed Secret Avengers whilst I was on hiatus. So I'd like to thank you so much, guys, for doing a fantastic job. And also, of course, Khonshu for stitching the episodes together. So Connor's now had a hand at editing the episodes, and he did a fantastic job. So thank you guys for a great episode. Also, like to extend that thanks to, of course, the co-hosts Rebecca and Khonshu for their subsequent episode as well, which I found was quite funny to listen to. It was great to be on the other side of the fence, so to speak, and come in fresh to listen to an Into the Night episode, not knowing at all what would be on it. It was a whole heap of fun. I laughed and I chuckled, and I'm still trying to figure out what a polywhirl is. So I'll have to speak to Connor about that. Anyway, so as I mentioned, unfortunate that can't have Rebecca and Connor for this episode, but I really wanted to keep the train moving, so to speak, and we have a LUNAR-PICK for this episode. It's a classic run. So we're going to stick to, well, I say we, I don't have multiple personalities, but, we'll go through the issue in pretty much our new format, which basically includes a sliver, which is a summation of the whole issue, as well as I'm just going to fire off any ideas and thoughts about the comics that I enjoyed or didn't enjoy, and we'll finish with our Moon ratings, which I noticed actually in one of the prompt sheets. I believe it may have been Tommy or Connor who added it in. There's actually correct terminology for the moon, so I might try and use that in the moon rating for this issue. Anyway, let's get into LUNAR-PICK.
The moon will not tolerate your interference.
Yes, so we, as I mentioned numerous times, will be reviewing the Hulk magazine number 18. It is the backup story, Shadows in the Heart of the City, and this is part 2. So a couple of episodes ago we did part 1, which was an introduction to Hatchet Man, aka Randall Spector, and at the end of that issue we found out that the Hatchet Man, or Randall, is indeed the brother of Mark Spector. So we are familiar with Mark Spector having multiple identities, but we are now introduced to his brother, who also seems to have merc training, and who also seems to be a little bit more crazier than Mark. And so this has proven to be quite one of the popular, I guess, stories of Moon Knight in so much that it's quite dark. I mean, we have a psychotic man dressed in a Halloween mask and pajama pants running around with an axe, killing people. So it really is a bit of a dark comic. And so this issue as well, if I'm to go into the sliver of this, basically what happens is Moon Knight gives chase to Hatchet Man, who makes his way through the city, hacking as many people as he can. It culminates in a park where Hatchet Man impales himself and Mark is sad. Yeah, so basically that's it. I mean, the plot is it's a big chase. And anyway, I found this issue quite enjoyable. It kept the pace up, and again, it's written by Doug Moench, art by Bill Sienkiewicz, and really, really good. It's typical of the other Hulk magazine backup stories of Moon Knight, in that the art is very. I'm not sure if it is just the fact that it is in a magazine, but it is very pulpy. It's very different from Sienkiewicz's art in his later run of Moon Knight, and even his early run as well. I think a lot has to do with Steve Orliff's colours, which bring a I don't know. All I can describe is a bit of a pulpy sense to it. But anyway, it is the art is fantastic as usual, I think. And what I guess the immediate impact from this issue I found would be, again, as was part 1, was the graphic violence of this. I mean, we have a guy with an axe, and you do openly see him hacking and slashing his way through. There's even one bit in it where he wields the axe down on Moon Knight, and I'm not sure exactly how he managed to deflect the shot, because it looked like a really heavy shot. It came down, I think, square on his chest, on Moon Knight's chest towards the end. Hang on, let me just have a look here. I can't find it now, but he doesn't have any body armor or anything like that. From what it looks like, he's basically your conventional superhero tights. So it was interesting. Maybe he kind of rolled with the slash. I don't know, but he still is on his feet, a bit ginger, but he still plods on and follows Randall. So, I mean, plot-wise for this story, there isn't too much. I mean, it's just basically a chase through New York City. Moon Knight even, I found interesting as well, he even attacks some of the cops as well. He gets quite aggressive, which I don't know, I think is unlike Moon Knight, but he's under duress. I mean, Marlene had just recently been stabbed in the back or hacked in the back by Randall, and so she lies unconscious in a bloodied mess at Moon Knight's feet. But yeah, Moon Knight kicks away the policeman, who, I don't know, I guess they're unsure because he's dressed up as a superhero. They're not too sure how to take him, and he's got this body at his feet. So maybe it's a bit of quick thinking, and he just he quickly kicks them away and demands that they get an ambulance. Yeah, and anyway, so the plot is basically, a chase for Randall Spector, but it's peppered with some historical memories that Mark has with his brother Randall, and you can see that as kids they seemed quite close to each other, and even in the history as well, there's a bit of a recap of Mark and Randall as soldiers of fortune, and the apparent end of Randall as as Mark hurls that grenade at him when they had an encounter of sorts, and he's kind of left for dead. So you get these memories kind of peppered throughout the issue, which was interesting. It was good. It was good to break up what essentially is a very basic and very simple thread that runs through this issue, and that's basically a chase through the city. So I mean that was quite interesting. But yeah, what I found also quite revealing was, when they were kids, they played cowboys and Indians as well, and it seems, from Randall's point of view anyway, that Mark always seemed to win, which would play into, I guess, Randall's psyche and his ultimate, I guess, hatred or competitiveness towards Mark. Funnily enough as well, it's not revealed until the end to Randall that Moon Knight is in fact Mark Spector. So, if anything, that's a bit of a win, isn't it? Two birds with one stone when he's fighting Moon Knight anyway, and he's looking for Mark Spector. He's got them both there. I found though the ending of Randall impaling himself on the branch a little, I don't know, how shall I say it? I don't know, it was a little anticlimactic, I think. It kind of wrapped things up pretty quickly. I guess Doug Moench, I don't know, to me, he didn't have a sense of how he could resolve this issue at least. Perhaps he was constrained to just the two parts. But to me, it seemed like there was a lot more to it that could be said between Mark Spector and Randall Spector. But anyway, towards the end, they have a final confrontation. Basically, let me just grab it out here. Basically, Randall is lurking in a cave, and Mark kind of catches wind of this as well, because he has the memories again of when they were kids and how Randall would double back on his tracks and kind of lead Mark to a certain spot, but in fact be kind of behind him, waiting to ambush him. And this is exactly the case in the final encounter that the two have, and that advantage that Mark has, or the realization of that's what Randall has done, really does well for Mark, and so he manages to avert the attack of Randall, and he pushes him aside. Not that it does too much to him, because as I said, the ultimate thing was, so he brushes Randall aside, Randall gets up, then he hurls himself again at Mark, but happens to hurl himself right onto a tree branch, which, I don't know, it's almost comical for me, because this was such a scary and imposing character. I mean, it was built up from part one, and all the way through this issue as well. He's portrayed in a very kind of dark and scary manner, and for him to, I don't know, just kind of fall onto the branch was a little, as a little, oh, is that it? So, I mean, I didn't think that worked too well. Mind you, also, I did a bit of reading on Randall Spector, because I did find him a fascinating sort of person or character, and there was a bit of a retcon to it. Surely I don't think this was a plan all along. But in Mark Spector Moon Knight, I believe issue 37, there's a return of Randall Spector, I think in a story arc called Blood Brothers, and it's revealed that the Randall Spector in this two-part story was an imposter. Was apparently the real Randall Spector had somehow coerced this person to walk or run around calling himself Randall and go on that murder spree. So, which is kind of good because I think, well, number one, I guess the writers wanted to bring back Randall Spector, and when he died after 2 issues here in the Hulk magazine, there's not much you can do about it. Other than, they could have gone down the route of him being resurrected, or, comics are fantastic with all that sort of thing. There are multiple ways that comic characters can come back from the dead. But I guess they went down the route of him not being really Randall Spector at all in this arc. But as we read this, we are to take it to be his brother. And yeah, I mean, it's kind of just left at that. I mean, he's left swinging from a tree. And Mark goes back to the hospital because the police had indeed called the ambulance and had whisked Marlene away. And at the end, we see, which again I found it, I don't know, not funny. I thought it was pretty cool. You see Moon Knight, who is a bit injured himself. He got stabbed or hacked with an axe. So he's bandaged up, but you see him in hospital, basically bare-chested, but he still retains his cape and his hood. So yeah, I don't know. I just find that kind of, you don't see that very often, Although we did see it only just recently in the Max Bemis run. I think High Priest of Khonshu, Rebecca really enjoyed it in the fact that Mr. Knight we had in Crazy Runs of the Family, he's in nothing but his boxer shorts and his white mask. So, you get a bit of that here as well. So it has been done again, but it always just looks funny when they're covering their face, but they're in their civvies or even less than that. So yeah, apart from that, just having a look through these pages here, I do like the mood that Sienkiewicz sets to this issue. He has it down pelting with rain as they come towards their final confrontation in the park. And also his use of a very signature Sienkiewicz with Moon Knight as he's running or leaping towards something. His cape has that kind of crescent moon shape, which is pretty good. Other than I'm looking at the page now where where Hatchet Man basically buries an axe in Mark's chest. I don't know how he survives that, but anyway, he's probably just a really strong fella. But yeah, that's really the gist of this story. As for ramifications later on, well, I think as I mentioned, the writers later decided to bring Randall back, and so he appears again in, as I mentioned, Mark Spector Moon Knight issue 37. For Moon Knight, if anything, they could have maybe they build upon this, which is a bit hard because Randall is dead, but they started to tease Mark's history, like his childhood, which was really interesting. And we did see that with Jeff Lemire's run, where we look into Mark's childhood. And actually, also having said that, the most recent, I think, 194 of Max Bemis's run, where we get another aspect of Mark growing up and his relationship with his dad, and of course, what we now see is it seems to be a major villain in Uncle Ernst has come out. So it's good to see that they're starting to dip into, I guess, that well of potential stories for Moon Knight. But yeah, this two-parter started to tease that, and it was unfortunate that it kind of just stops after that. If I'm to just quickly, just going to quickly have a look at what, like chronologically, what happens to Moon Knight next, is I have got down here, Marvel Preview 21. And we hit the 1980s, so we're not that long. Basically, this was released, in December 1979. So, and in 1980, we have Moon Knight, his own solo title. So it's not long before we get a fully fledged Moon Knight title. And I guess Doug Moench decided to try and flesh out the mercenary aspect and how, Moon Knight became, Mark Spector became Moon Knight. So I guess his familial history is taken a back seat, so to speak, and then we see Doug Moench starting to build upon that Egyptian mythology with Khonshu, and also with Raoul Bushman and Frenchie. So we start to get that more fleshed out rather than his family history. But in any sense, this was quite interesting to read. As for ratings, let me just whip this up here. So I think it was Tommy or Connor who had given me a link on the prompt sheet of the actual terminology for moon ratings. So I want to do it justice, and instead of just giving it the hackneyed half moon, full moon stuff, let's get things right. So, also as well, I must add, there were just a couple of things in the news, nothing big, but I'll get to that. So there's the new moon, the waxing crescent, the first quarter, waxing gibbous, full moon, the waning gibbous, the last quarter, waning crescent is fantastic. Look, I would give it, I'd give it the waxing gibbous, only because I like the name of that. So if we were to equate that to like ratings, there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and then if we have the blue moon, which is 9, that is say a 4 out of 9. Waxing gibbous. The area of illumination continues to increase. More than half of the moon's face appears to be getting sunlight. Yeah, so it's a bit over half a moon. I think that's pretty good. Yeah, let's go the waxing gibbous. So it was a decent read. It was fun. It wasn't by any means. I was not bogged down at all by the writing or the plot. I mean, as I mentioned, the plot was very, very simple. And the art was still good. I mean, the art's what kind of chugged it along. And for those that love a little bit of violence, there was a bit of graphic violence there. So that kind of kept things quite interesting. So it's pretty hard to find unless you have a single issue of an actual hard copy issue of the Hulk magazine, issue 18. It may be difficult to track down. I had a little quick look. It's not on Comixology, and I believe it's not on Marvel Unlimited. So it's a hard one to track. If you have a collected edition of either the Essential Collection of Moon Knight or the Epic Collection, I believe it's in the Epic Collection of Moon Knight. I think it's a second volume. Oh, no, actually, it's in the first volume. Volume 1, Bad Moon Rising of the Epic Collection of Moon Knight. It's available there or in a single floppy issue. Otherwise, and might be a bit hard to track down, but if you search the interwebs, I'm sure you can come up with something there. But it's worth a read, and I would actually read Part 1 and Part 2 back to back myself. I actually read Part 1 and Part 2 with quite far apart, but I think that would work really well just as a compact, like a larger issue, a double-sized issue. So, yeah, go check it out, Hulk 18. I've got to backtrack a little bit and just cover a bit of news. Look, there wasn't that much news, but I wanted to flag it anyway with you Loonies. And first bit of news was basically on Marvel Unlimited, we get a bit more of Moon Knight. So on the 6th of August, as I speak now, it is the 12th. So Moon Knight 191 was released on Marvel Unlimited. And on later in the month, on the 27th of August, we'll have Doctor Strange Damnation 1 available on Marvel Unlimited. So if you haven't got those issues already and you have that subscription, please check it out. If you haven't if you haven't read Damnation, be sure to give issue 1 a read and check out one of the review episodes which we were a part of. We collaborated with Inner Demons, the Ghost Rider podcast, Sons of the Dragon, the Immortal Iron Fist podcast, and Defenders TV podcast. We did a massive podcast crossover earlier in the year, and we covered every single issue of the Damnation event. So yeah, be sure to check out that podcast episode if you haven't read Damnation 1, which is on Marvel Unlimited. Secondly, news-wise, it was very tangential to Moon Knight. We had the ABC president of the TV network, discussing how they would like to, they do have more Marvel shows in development on the ABC. So, whether or not that is Moon Knight, I don't know. It'd be interesting to know your thoughts, actually, on whether you think Moon Knight would be appropriate for the ABC network. I myself, if we're looking, and I'm covering Freeform as part of ABC as well, I'd like to see, I think Ghost Rider, actually, would be good. It'd be good to build upon the Ghost Rider character introduced in Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. And we know now also that Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. will go beyond Season 6 as well, so that's good news. Will be renewed for Season 6 at least, and they're optimistic that there will be a Season 7. But with more of Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. coming, there may be a chance of introducing TV shows or spin-offs from there. So, I mean, before we had the talks of Mockingbird and Lance Hunter, I can't remember what that was called, Most Wanted or something. But having introduced Ghost Rider from Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., I think he would be the logical choice for them to bring him in. Otherwise, if they want to build a universe, which I believe they do, because if you look at Runaways on Freeform and Cloak and Dagger, which seem to be very closely tied, I mean, they're very closely associated in the comics, then you might be looking at characters or titles connected to those existing ones already. So with the Runaways and Cloak and Dagger, they are quite, I was about to say Cloak and Dagger is associated basically with Spider-Man, but he's in the MCU. Anyway, I think those would have more of a possibility rather than Moon Knight. I'd be happy to see Moon Knight show up, but I still think he probably fits better in the Netflix realm, and we know at this point that Netflix aren't going to be making any more or adding any more Marvel characters to their toy box of Marvel characters for the TV show. So, I mean, those were the two bits of news. that came out, so very small. Actually, as well, I'd like to actually go bounce now. I'm all over the place here. I bounce into our mini missives. So we did have a little bit of feedback on our Facebook page. This is to do with Hulk issue 18. And this is from Liz Licks, and she says, Hatchet Man, Randall is truly one sick individual. He is the serial killer that just won't die. I love the POVs in this comic. Thanks, Liz. Yeah, it was, he certainly does not die because he seems to come back again and again, and death doesn't even seem to stop him. Truly a scary individual. Look, I don't think it would work if he goes up against, the likes of Luke Cage or Spider-Man, basically because he'd be horribly outmatched. But with a true gritty street level like Moon Knight, and particularly in this era, 1979, he definitely is a handful for our White Avenger. So, yeah, thanks, Liz, for that. It was really cool. We also got another little comment from Mitchell, and he just mentioned that he thought he had the issue of Hulk 18, which is actually quite impressive because I haven't seen many of them around. I'm sure you can probably find them on eBay these days. But they, the Hulk magazine issues are certainly hard to come by, and would be less likely to be stocked, I guess, than your standard comic book these days in your LCS. So yeah, thank you, Mitchell, for that. All right, well, look, there's really not much else to talk about here. Before signing off, I'd just like to give a spectacle, our little shout out segment to the group known as the Collective, which Into the Night is part of. You can find any of the Collective rants and tweets. Just search hashtag the Collective Network on Twitter. Also at Collective Pods is the Twitter handle for the Collective as well. And that should kind of point you towards all the podcasts that are associated with the Collective Network. Yeah, look, just an informal, fun bunch of podcasters. We like to just bounce ideas around, like to support and cross-promote each other's works. So we have the likes of the Cloak and Dagger podcast, Defenders TV podcast mentioned earlier. We have a Hulk, Adeland Rising, the Namor podcast, a whole heap of podcasts out there. And I just wanted to shout out, we have two new additions to the Collective, one being Earth's Mightiest Podcast, a really fun podcast, kind of built around three hosts. I believe it's Corwin, Viet, and Bobby, and they cover stuff from, as the title suggests, the Avengers, as well as the X titles, and I think Deadpool as well. So they kind of tick the boxes for that, and a great addition to the Collective. So check out Earth's Mightiest Podcast. I'll put the contact details in the show notes, or just check out the Collective link itself. Also, as well, on board, we have Weird Science Marvel Comics Podcast. And these guys, again, they do comic book reviews of basically a lot of the Fresh Start titles. So, yeah, really lively banter from these guys as well. Go check them out. And again, I'll put their links in the show notes for you. So, having said that, talking about the next phase for Into the Night, after this a little humble episode is released, we'll be looking at episode 56. And look, due to popular demand, we're going to have to bounce a little. I thought it would be good to wrap up this Randall Spector arc for the classic run, so that has finished. And we're going to bounce for our next LUNAR-PICK for we're going to bounce into Moon Knight Volume 7, Number 1. And for those who don't know, Volume 7 is the Warren Ellis run Yes, we will finally get to that. So we'll be looking at issue 1 of that, and hopefully we'll have either Rebecca and or Conishu with us to review that. So that should be a lot of fun. So that's kind of back to one of our modern run reviews. As always, you can find us or contact us on email at itkmoonnight@gmail.com. Just a note, I had changed that now just for consistency. That used to be Moon Knight Podcast. So you can actually email to moonknightpodcast@gmail.com or itkmoonnight@gmail.com. We have our blog site, intothenightpodcast.wordpress.com. On Facebook, we're on facebook.com/itkmoonnight, which is our page, and our ever-growing Facebook group, which is a fantastic place to share ideas and fandom with, is at facebook.com/groups/itkmoonnight. Our Twitter handle is at itkmoonnight, and we're also on Instagram, Tumblr, and YouTube. Just search for Into the Night, a Moon Knight podcast. Finally, for podcast catches, we are on, I guess, all the big ones. So please check out the likes of Apple Podcasts, Google Play, Spotify, Stitcher, iHeartRadio, blah blah blah. we're all there. So whatever you're listening to us now, and you have friends that listen to other things, let them know, and share the love. A couple of other things just off the top of my head before I sign off. iTunes, an iTunes rating. I mean, I know we don't plug too much of this, but it is cool. If you could just write up a review if you like the show, that would be great. It just helps us to kind of cast our net further. Oh, that was a little mace. I don't know if he picked that up on the microphone. Little Macy's down here. That just casts our net a bit further and exposes us to a few more other potential listeners. So we definitely want to get this Moon Knight train chugging along, and hopefully gathering a groundswell where, we won't be ignored and a movie/TV show is made. Hooray! Please, iTunes review would be fantastic. Finally, almost forgot. Finally, there was a while ago I did I put a survey out onto our Facebook page and group, just asking what you'd like to see more of on the show, and I got the results in, and so on last place, not that there is anything. There's a ranking or anything, but anyway, I'm not even going to rank it. So we had, if you wanted more crossovers with other podcasts, if you wanted more reviews on toy figures, more reviews on video games, if you wanted more reviews on trades or arcs in general as opposed to single issues, and I think that was about it. And so we actually got most of the votes in for doing toy figures, which is pretty cool. I'm just gonna have to do my research and find what other toy figures are out there that we can review. We did do the Funko Pop ones, which were just recent, and the Hasbro Legends Moon Knight figure. So go check those out in our earlier episodes. Happy to do other toy figures as well. So that came in at top notch, and that was closely followed by trades and arc reviews, in which I think the Secret Avengers review by Tommy and Matthew was great, and I think it's fantastic, and I think we should probably do more of that as well. So thank you so much for the feedback. Those were the two main ones, and look, the third one was the video games, which again I am pretty keen on doing myself. I'm not much of a gamer, but I know a few of you out there are. So so thank you for that feedback. So we'll try to add more toy figures and arcs in general. I know one Rick Ball special wants to see Sidekick's Revenge Round Robin, which is a fantastic arc from Amazing Spider-Man, which includes art by Mark Bagley and has the Punisher, Night Thrasher, all your fantastic 90s characters. So yeah, we might do that soon as well. I might even throw it out there for Rick Ball to come along, and I do believe, I think one of our other Loonies, Josh, was pretty keen on that. So let's see if we can get a round table happening. Anyway, Loonies, I am just rambling. I just want to say thank you once again for listening. And thanks for bearing with me. Fatherhood has been hands-on, but it's been an absolute joy, absolute loving the little fella Finn. But yeah, it does constrain availability, and it does actually make it a little harder to coordinate with other, co-hosts of the non-Australian ilk. But fear not, I will, trek on, and we'll try to get you the best Into the Night podcast episodes we can for you. So we also have more Isla Raz coming up as well, so stay tuned for that. I know Connor's got one up his sleeve, which should come out shortly. But until then, onwards and upwards. And as we always say on this episode or this show, may Khonshu watch over the denizens of the night. Catch you later.
Moon Knight and affiliated characters, stories and events are properties of Marvel Characters Incorporated. Materials used and discussed within the podcast are intended for critique and review purposes only under the fair dealing concept of the current Copyright Act. The views, information or opinions expressed during the podcast are solely those of the individuals involved and do not necessarily represent those of the copyright owners.